May I please call on stage India Today's Koel Puri, armed and hilarious. This is the topic for our next session, the legend of Mrs Funnybones. Koel, over to you. Yes, our next guest needs no introduction.
I'm supposed to invite you, but since you need no invitation, please. So I believe that you can't truly be funny unless you can laugh at yourself. And Mrs Funnybones' sharp wit and informed tongue spares no one, least of all herself. She has a great ability to laugh at herself. She is an author, columnist, film producer, erstwhile actor, interior designer, entrepreneur, mother of two, Mrs Funny, and sometimes in trouble with the law. Big round of applause for Twinkle Khanna.
Thank you. That's a marvelous introduction. And now I'm ready for you to grill me, because I know you will.
I don't intend to grill you. This is a celebration of women, not a grilling of women, right? So, first question. You have this ability to look at anything from politicians to everyday life and see the funny side of it. And you're able to put across a message, yet in a light-hearted manner. How do you do it?
Actually, when you think about it, the truth itself is funny. When you unwrap all the layers of conditioning around it, it's funny. Humor is nothing but looking at the intrinsic truth through a peculiarly slanted magnifying glass. That's what it is. So, if I make a joke, and every joke has to have that element of truth, otherwise it's not funny. So if I say that God couldn't be everywhere, so he created mothers, and the devil couldn't be everywhere, so he created mothers-in-law. So the reason you laughed was because the mother-in-law is the ubiquitous bad woman, slightly. But if you reverse the joke, it wouldn't be funny, because it wouldn't be true. So if you said God created mother-in-laws, couldn't be everywhere to create mother-in-laws, it wouldn't be funny. That's what it is.
I think that's hysterical. Do you have a lot of this humor running in your family? Do you get it from your mother, from...
So I think my grandfather was a very funny man, and I was very lucky. I grew up in this dilapidated, leaking bungalow filled with my uncles and aunts, my grandparents, my cousins, and all of them, for some odd reason, would laugh at everything. We would laugh at each other, make jokes at each other. We would laugh at, other people. We would laugh at success, at failure. And I think that they gave me a gift, and it's a gift that I've carried throughout. And that was to look for the absurd in the tragic. And that, I think, is the most precious thing that I have.
And it keeps you light. You talk about your mother a lot in your columns. Even in your previous book, there's a, her character. I'm sure it's exaggerated and stuff. But just not really, right? Mothers are... I just want to give you an example of what happened earlier today to me. I was on stage with Shahid. I get a note that comes to me and it says, "Fix your skirt, you're almost naked." Yeah. And I had to take no guesses from where that came from. Has anything like that ever happened to you in a public space with your mother?
Not in a public space. Well, it did happen to me. So in fact, in Delhi, we went to Bhartiya and Sons. Now, in a bookshop, I'm sort of like Elton John. People like me and they know me and whatever.
John, I love the analogy.
And so somebody came up to my mother who was standing there and they said, your daughter, she writes so well. And I was across the bookstore signing an autograph. And she looked at me, pointed, and she said, this jungly. I think even that poor, person who was speaking to her was horrified, and I just wanted a bookshelf to fall on me and die. But she does this to me all the time. In fact, I think Hema Malini is here, and I still remember when, right in the beginning, one of my columns, sort of went viral, and I was very excited. So I called her the next day. I said, "Did you read my column?" And it's done so well. She said, "No, but I wanted to tell you yesterday that none of your serving dishes are matching. So I said, what's the use of having you as a mother? I wish Hema Malini was my mother. At least I'd get a Kent water purifier free. I mean, really.
You got your joke in. Okay, coming to your book. There are a few lines in this recent book that I just love. So I've chosen some of them. I'd love you to elaborate on them. One of them is, life is but a play of chance in the game of choice.
So I think that is something that is very close to my heart. There are things that I planned in my life. There are things that happened to me. I never planned to become an actress. I wanted to become a chartered accountant. And yeah, I know it's really dull. I don't know why I want to do that, but that was my plan. I became an actress, and I didn't really plan to fail spectacularly either, but I failed. And then I never thought I'd ever get married. I had no intention of getting married. I had no desire to. We weren't brought up that way. I got married. And I wanted to write when I was 60, but I ended up writing when I was 38. So life is really a play of chance in the game of choice.
Have you been lucky with that chance?
I also, a lot of people say, talk about luck. And my husband recently said, we're really lucky. When we were staying in Warsaw, a monkey came onto a terrace and he used to visit us. And we were staying in Juhu, a turtle came into our house and it's staying with us. And I said, yeah, it's lucky, but you have to understand that life only comes when you make it viable for living. So I had pomegranate and chiku trees, the monkey came. I had a fish pond, so the turtle came. So luck is something that you create.
You talked about your film career, and you're a very self-aware person, and at some point you realized that it wasn't going to work for you, even though you're surrounded by superstars, your dad Rajesh Khanna, Dimple Kapadia, your mother, now your husband Akshay Kumar. Was it a bitter pill to swallow that I don't have what it takes to make it?
I don't think so, because like I said, I grew up with this family where even success is not taken, very seriously. So failure is easy to shrug off then. And it was just, this was not something that I was driven to do. It's not something that I really loved. I worked hard. I did my best. But it just wasn't good enough, and I have to accept that and move on.
But a lot of people make an entire career of not being good enough, and they, with your pedigree, you could have.
But that's their perspective of life, what they wanted to do. I didn't love it. I just wanted to come back home. So yeah, I was happy to quit.
Do you miss the limelight? Now that you have your own limelight. But for a period of time, you were quite sort of, low-key and stuff. Did you ever miss it?
No, I don't miss the limelight. I like to sit in my cave with my cubs and scribble on the walls. In fact, this spot in the sunlight is giving me a bit of a heat stroke, to be honest.
Okay, another quote, and this is about women from your book. When a woman's economic status improves, her entire family's condition improves, whereas for a man that may not necessarily hold true. This is an amazing observation. How did you arrive at this, and do you really believe it's true?
Well, when you look at most women, the minute that they have some money in their hand, they will start thinking about, they won't think that I'll get a sari for myself. They'll be thinking, what can I get for my child, and he needs a sweater, or I can put them in a school, and they think about their family. Whereas a man would probably think, I need a bigger mobile phone. So I think that difference is there. It's just, you can't judge them as worse off than us. Well, you can, but that's okay. But that's the way life is.
So talking about women and feminism being the big F word these days, feminism is about gender equality, and it's not about mustached women hating men. What does it mean to you?
I disagree with you. I think you can have a mustache and be a feminist. I have one, but I'm a fashionable feminist, so I'm keeping it under wraps. The minute the trend changes, I'll be twirling mine.
I'm right with you. No more laser, thank you.
You can also hate men and be a feminist. You can hate men, you can hate cats, you can hate your Uncle Pintu. As long as you believe in equality, you're a feminist. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. Having said that, these days I see a lot of the proverbial t-shirt wearing feminists. And that's fantastic. I mean, there's one by Dior that I really want. If anybody wants to get me a gift, please, you know what to get me. But for me, I feel that I need to go a bit beyond that. And I feel that I'm lucky I'm here. I'm privileged I'm here. I'm here because of a lot of women who fought the battles for me. So what am I going to do now to push that envelope further? And that's my stance.
What are you going to do?
So I think for me, my version of feminism, it's based on me pushing the envelope by picking the topics I choose to write about, the stories I choose to tell, and the projects that I back. So currently I'm making a movie called Padman, which is my first production. It revolves around menstruation and the sanitary pad. And so I've put my money, my clout, my goodwill and my determination behind a project that I believe will alleviate the burden from a lot of women, will take a part of our biology that is right now wrapped in newspapers and shoved into black plastic bags and bring it out for open discussions. And that's my version of feminism.
And Padman is based on the real life person. Murugud, I don't know how to pronounce his name either.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Muruganathan Arunachalam. Yeah.
Excellent, right?
So,
Padma Shri, and he's been on the Time magazine cover, who basically made cheap sanitary napkins for women. And she's actually fictionalized it as the last chapter of her book. How did you choose this story? I mean, for obvious reasons, yes, it caught your eye, but tell me the journey of arriving here.
So when I was researching a column on menstruation for the Times, I chanced upon his story. And it was a wonderful story. Not only does he make cheap sanitary napkins, but he also sells his machines to NGOs and women's group to generate livelihoods. And then I saw a TED talk by him. And then I said, this is a wonderful story, and I think it needs to go further than it has. And then I began chasing him. And I would keep calling him, and he wouldn't pick up my phone. And I chased him, and it was 8 months of chasing him. I would call him from wherever I was, whether I was, in Goa, whether I was in Bombay. And finally, I called him when I was in England. And I think he must have thought, this is a foreign number, must be some fancy journalist, so he picked up the call. And I said, I want to come and see you. And he, by coincidence, was in London. And I went there, and I spoke to him. And he's a very funny guy. So he also has these one-liners, and he doesn't take himself very seriously. And I thought it was a perfect combination.
And he said yes then and there?
No, he didn't say yes. I kept convincing him, and then finally he said, I've seen you in some movies, and I was like, yeah, okay. You look like that actress, and I wasn't going to help him with this. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine, I look like that actress. He said, yeah, I've seen it in that song. That actress? You look like her, Raveena Tandon. And I was like, shit. I really don't want to make, and that was the only moment I wanted to drop his story. But yeah, I persevered.
Do you have a funny joke about Padman or sanitary pads or anything on the tip of your finger?
No, I have. So it's a very odd thing, but just as I was coming here yesterday, what I call him my domestic Jeeves, who's a bit insane, was walking with this really dodgy plastic bag. And I said, what is it? So he said, it's yours. And I said, what is it? And he comes to me and he says, it's your Pampers. So, and this happened to me yesterday. It's not even like last week.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter says that too. Mama, why are you wearing a diaper? There's still some time for you to understand that. Okay, this is another quote. It's the way that you describe bureaucrats and politicians. People who do as little as they can for as long as they can.
I mean, if you've been in a government office, that is their basic endeavor, that they must do things very slowly. They will have coffee, then they will ask you very politely in a very sweet manner for a bribe. So, that is the way it is, and you have to accept it.
And now we have Yogi Adityanath in one of the most populated states. And he's not got the most amazing track record as far as what he says for women. Let's hope that that's in the past. But what would you have to say to him when he says things like that women can't go out unescorted?
I think he needs to do an asana called Paschimo Asana. That's basically a gas-releasing one. It's really good for your system. And but I also think that, he's kind of changing fashion and he's changing design. And so I wrote about it and I said, well, Asian Paints should now announce the new color of the season. Yeah, blazing saffron, because orange is the new brown.
Speaking of orange, what would you have to say if you were just introduced to Mr. Orange, President Trump?
Well, I would just say Donald Duck, because here I'm about to swing. Yeah.
Okay, another thing that one of the Andhra Assembly speakers said, that women are never raped if parked at home like cars. Sorry? Women are never raped if they are parked at home like cars. What would you say to that?
I think it's an absolutely ignorant and stupid thing to say. I don't know who said it.
It was the Andhra Assembly speaker.
Yeah. And, but ignorance is prevalent in the universe. Why are we surprised?
And if you were in the recent Air India, was it Air India or Indian Airlines, whatever, it's the same thing now, Air India flight where the lovely politician from Shiv Sena slapped a staffer, suppose you were a passenger sort of sitting a row behind him or something, what would you do?
I really don't know. I mean, I would love to say that I would jump to the rescue, but I think that would be a falsehood. I don't know. I'd probably be stunned.
25 times, apparently, he hit him. Yeah, with his slipper.
Yeah, okay, I would have done
25 times. It wasn't just a one-off.
Yeah. But a very strange thing happened on Women's Day. I went to have dinner at a Chinese restaurant, and just a few tables away, there was a group. There were 3 women, and there were 2 guys. And suddenly, this man comes in, and he had a motorbike helmet, and he whacked that woman on the head. And he was shouting, he's saying, this is your NGO, you said you were going to an NGO. She was his wife, I guess, and she was having this dinner. So I kind of got up to go, and by then they dragged him out. And so I was sitting there looking at all this, and the rest of the table started walking, and they looked at me, they smiled, they recognized me and said, Happy Women's Day, and I said, Happy Women's Day to you.
Not a pleasant story, right? What's a word that would describe you at this point in your life?
A word. Why do I have to be limited to a word?
A sentence, a paragraph, a book. The mic is yours.
No, I think, okay, I'll stick to a word. I'm comfortable. That's what it is.
Is that part and parcel of being at your, I would say, like for me, I'm at my half point. Is that something that you've arrived at being a half-timer?
I was just telling Kaveri the same thing, that, you know, by the time you get to 40, you're really comfortable in your skin. But that's also because your skin is not as tight as it used to be.
Listen, all the women who feel that, I need a round of applause right now. Okay, coming to marriage now. It's a strange world that we live in now. More marriages are breaking up, or at least are miserable. You describe the dynamics of very different marriages in your book. How would you describe your own?
I think it's a great team. We are playing tennis doubles. And I think that is a pretty good foundation for a marriage to last.
Now, I've heard that you made lists of pros and cons, right, before you got married. You're a list kind of girl. It's very practical. You have a great partnership. It works. What happens if between this partnership someone comes and sweeps you off your feet then? Or either of you?
So I think a lot of people have this deluded notion of love. I believe that sweeping off the feet has nothing to do with the heart. It's chemicals, adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin dipping down. And so that's that. Secondly, and I read this book called Course of Love by Alain de Botton. My French sucks, so, which said that love is not an enthusiasm, it's a skill. And I think if you hold on to that, it's very difficult for someone to sweep you off your feet.
You've also called your husband, which rightly so, 6 feet of chocolate ice cream. Has your attraction towards him over the years changed? And is it important? At this age, is sex important in a marriage?
I think sex is important at every stage. And I think the things that I found extremely attractive in him have changed over the years. I didn't realize that he has this calm and composed mind that I, wanted to emulate. So I think for me, that's what holds me, because I want to be like that, Zen-like. I do yoga. I just did some, breathing, and I've come down, and I'm still not calm. So, yeah.
So there are a lot of marriages, especially in Bombay, Delhi, that we hear of. Is infidelity, or should infidelity be a deal breaker? Is it important?
I think, of course, it's important because it's about respect. And, but is it a deal breaker in every situation? I don't know. It depends on how good your marriage is.
Your husband reads your columns and rates you out of 10. Do you actually make the changes he asks for, delete the lines, change them around, water it down, or do you just ignore him?
No, I listen to everything he says, because he seems to have this idea of what resonates with people. And my last column, he gave me 9.98, which is the highest ever. And it did resonate with a lot of people. So I think he has that sort of pulse on, on human beings and what they... And what matters to them.
Okay, this is the last question about him, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Do you dress him? Because he's one of the nattiest dressers in town.
No, I don't dress him, but I must admit that he has more pairs of shoes than I do. He really does. He does. My sister will vouch for that, sitting right there.
Now, since you're a this is a tongue twister, list girl, what was the last list that you made?
Things to do, rent my house, maybe give it to Airbnb. No, seriously. So this is a list I had.
Motherhood. How would you describe it to someone who was sort of going, should I have a baby, shouldn't I have a baby? What would you say?
I would say that it's a life-changing experience. It is the only time that you experience love in all its glory and the pain. And it's about never being yourself again. Because even if I'm here, there's a part of me that's still thinking, what is my daughter doing right now? And where's my son? And that invisible cord never breaks. So it's being tied to something forever, but in a good way. I like it.
What has been the hardest moment of motherhood? Because, people don't really tell you that, at least for me, like, parenting is hard. It's not, like you've just said, it's not just like, oh, I love this baby, so cute, and finished, Otherwise, you're just delegating. You have an army of staff and whatever. But tell me your hardest moment where you've come to, like, what am I doing? Have you had any of those?
No, because I don't take it so seriously. I let them be. I think it's okay if they get hurt. I think, I console myself with the fact that every blow is making them stronger. If they put an in-flight magazine in their mouth, I just say the germs are helping the immune system. So I take it easy, and I think that helps me. Yeah.
What is your hope for your daughter and your son, but more because we're talking about women here? Your daughter is what, 5 years old now?
She's 4.
She's 4 and very bright, full of questions and curiosity, right?
Yeah. And she tries to say some big words. She knows only 2 and she mispronounces them, so I have no hope. No, but she's bright. And she does ask me a lot of questions. And it's even though I'm trying to inculcate the right attitude in her, there's so much of it outside that, you're struggling. There's a show called Barbie, on TV, where she's only dressing up and Ken is buying her gifts, and she has a giant sculpture of herself, of her head, where she's putting on makeup. So I don't let her watch that, but she's seen it somewhere and she wants to see it. And even fairy tales. I think fairy tales are actually very detrimental to feminism. It's a problem. And one day she asked me, she said, I don't like that witch. So I said, why? She said, witch is bad. And then I explained to her that the witch was probably a princess once who got tired of her knight in armor falling off his high horse and took matters into her own hands. And she may not understand it now, but I have put my message in a bottle and I've left it in the sea of her subconscious. And when she needs it, it's there. And that's, I think, what I'm doing with her.
Are you going to write a children's book? Are you going to write a children's book?
I have a story.
Yeah. Do we want her to write a children's book? I want my child to read this.
I have a story, but yeah, I still have to figure it out. It's a tragic story, and my daughter always says, "Can you tell me the story about, the mother who died?" And that's the story. So yeah. Yeah, because, and have you noticed one thing? In all the fairy tales, when the father dies, it's no big deal. It's always the mother's dead, and that's a big problem. Whether the father's there or not isn't an issue. Yeah.
So you're famous or infamous for your short fuse. How do you keep it under check as far as your kids are concerned? Or do you? Have you ever come close to like shaking your kids or, doing the, oh my God, the unthinkable whacking them?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. Both my kids, even the little 4-year-old has gotten whacked once. Yeah, but I don't think that whacking is the right thing to do. I don't really lose my temper around them. In fact, now I've been doing yoga for 15 years. I don't have that much of a temper anymore, unfortunately.
So you're much calmer.
Yeah, it also could be, I don't know, actually, menopause is around the corner. It might just come up again.
Please don't say that. Menopause is not around the corner. Come on. I know you're comfortable and all that, but... And Arav, your son, has recently been papped.
Yeah.
He's that age now, right? Does it worry you, this invasion so early? Because we didn't have that, right?
But their life is different. They're on Instagram and they're, on Snapchat, and they have a whole different version of reality than we did. I think that they're a lot more comfortable and easy with that sort of a life than we ever were. So I think they'll handle it. Every generation's handled their challenges, and so will they.
What do you tell him? Like, do you speak to him, or does your husband speak to him to say, this is how you present yourself, or just, do you have a chat with him about this? Or?
No, he's inherently a well-mannered child. My daughter's a monster.
Okay.
So, yeah.
There always has to be one, right? How do you teach him to respect women? Or do you have to teach him that?
No, I do. And, well, I have to say that he, in fact, does. He has very strong views, and it's not just me. I think what's really wonderful is that schools are now starting with gender education. That's also happening all over, and they do part of it. And then, of course, I talk to him about it. And I think also having a mom like me helps a little bit, perhaps.
I'm very interested in your routine. So you're someone who's a day person, an early riser. You go to bed at 9 o'clock on most days?
10:30.
10:30, and wake up at 5 a.m.?
No, 6. That's my husband.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you wake up later.
Yeah, 6.
What is the biggest advantage of, this kind of lifestyle? And do you never have FOMO of, like, there might be a whole other world going on in the night and the crazy things are happening? Do you never get FOMO about that?
So when I was growing up, I've always been a reader, and there would be things, I remember when I was older, and I went to this furniture fair in Milan, and everybody said, oh, they're going to the Bulgari Hotel for dinner, and I thought the people were really boring, so I said, no, I'd rather sit in my room and read a book. I've read my whole life, and I've missed out on so many things, but today when I'm sitting here because I did miss out on all those things, and I read so much. So I'm happy, it worked out for me. No, I don't have FOMO.
So basically, go to bed early, read a lot, inform your brain, and you can be this big star, right?
I don't know about a big star. I'm a little star, as the nursery rhyme goes. But yeah, I think that people are so... Again, I think that, yes, you do have one short life, and you have to do everything. And I have gone out, and I go out once in a while. But it's the same thing again and again. I'm not learning anything new. I just see women... there, and each time I see them, they look a little bit more frozen. I don't know why, but that's it. What am I missing?
Speaking of frozen, every time, because now I don't live here anymore, every time I come back, sometimes I don't recognize some of the people because their faces are all changed, new faces. Have you ever done, will you ever consider, because it's become as common as waxing, right?
Yeah.
Botox, surgery, vampire facials, I don't even know the rest of it.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think that it depends on what you're doing. For me, at this point of time, I'm like a building. If I fill in the cracks and I put a fresh coat of paint, somebody will pay more rent. So, it's true, right? So
your analogies are just brilliant.
Why? But it's true. So if you fill in the cracks and you paint it, and the same thing. So I'm out there in the limelight. I endorse products, and I have to look a certain way. So yeah, when the time comes, and maybe it's around the corner, I don't know. You'll tell me if it's time now. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's science. Technology has given us the means to do something, and it's okay. It's a bit narcissistic. So what?
Let's come to your writing now. What is it that your writing gives to you? We see what it gives to the world, but what does it give to you?
Exactly what we just spoke about. I think what writing does for me primarily is, and what it's done for me, it's kicked this midlife crisis out of the orbit. So now instead of thinking about the lines on my face, as we spoke about, I have to think about what line to come up with next.
And do you think better with a pen in your hand?
I think much better with a pen in my hand, and I think very dangerously when I use my tongue. So, yeah.
Sharp tongue, right? What impact do you think your writing has? Does it? Do you believe that it does? And do you feel it? Does it come back to you?
I'm trying to find a humble way to answer this, but
it's
I can't.
Okay, you know? Yeah.
I think that if it makes people look... Okay, so what I really believe is that if you can make someone laugh at something, then they will never look at that thing again with the same perspective. It's not possible. Because a laugh is not something you plan. It comes from within. It's like a sneeze or an orgasm. It's not something you control. So once you see that, you've changed their perspective. And if I take something which is a taboo, it's absurd, and I make you laugh at it, it will never be as much a taboo again. So I think that that is one thing. The other thing is that a lot of women identify with it, and maybe it changes a little bit of the way that they approach things. I did a column recently on sexual harassment at work. And then, you know, a lot of people started saying, oh, you know, on the metro today we were looking at two young women who were reading up the laws on sexual harassment at work. So I guess, yeah, it does help a little bit, I believe.
What are you reading at the moment?
I'm reading a book called Eileen by, what is her name? Montessa, yeah, something like that. It's shortlisted for the Booker. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to finish all the, so I read Sell Out by Paul Beatty, and I read Deborah Levy's book, and Hot Milk. And so I'm trying to read the best that the world has so that I can despair at my own inadequacies. And then I'm reading the worst, so I feel better about myself.
Who's the worst?
I'm not going to name them. You know the names. Yeah.
Now, your book seems very well researched. Is it, or it's just some things that sort of are in your, you know, normal life and you came across and you kind of dreamt it up? And is it, you know, or is it, do you go out there and you research it and you...
So, I think that when I write Mrs. Funnybones, also I have to do a lot of research. But when I had to do these, and when I had to do, let's say, for example, Muruganathan's story, there's a lot of research in that, so I had intensive interviews with him. And then, even after that, for me, it's very important that if the train is going and it stops at Vikram Nagar station, in reality, does it really stop long enough for him to get down and get a samosa or not? So I would research that. Or if, let's say, in the second story, Salam Noni Appa, she gets admitted to the hospital. So I wanted to know what the ICU was like in the 80s, because I don't know. So I would, you know, I called up doctors and I tried to figure out, and her disease. And I knew that she needed to have this disease, which was, you know, sort of gradual. So I had to look all of those things up. But we live in the world of the internet, so it's much easier today rather than, you know, actually what it used to be. And I really wonder, and it's credible, all these authors who've been writing all these years, they've probably been stuck in a library, and so much easier for us today.
You are fearless in your writing, and I'm not talking about your book, although your book is quite sort of out there as well, but in your column you write about anything from demonetization to rape to Salman Khan to anything that you want to, right? Does it take a lot of courage to be this fearless? Has it bitten you back? You know what I mean? Like, has anything ever made you feel like maybe I shouldn't have gone that far?
I don't think it takes courage. Yes, of course it backfires sometimes, and I get trolled. And but I've learned to shrug that off, because it's only going to worry me if it's somebody whose opinion I respect. And if it is somebody who can't spell my name and spells it Twinkle, I really don't care what you're saying about me. You know.
What is the worst troll? Just for our amusement, what is the worst troll that you've read, and what would be your reply to that?
No, there are so many. I have a whole list, and I don't really engage with each one of them, but I think it's best to ignore most of them. But yeah, sometimes. So I get trolled for different things. I even got trolled once because in my head I'm this, fat girl, right? I was very fat. So I wrote a column about, and yeah, I kind of rather foolishly in hindsight titled it, "The Fat Lady Sings." And I was writing that, I'm one of you guys, and I'm fat and all that. They didn't look at it like that, and they got really angry with me. So they were like, this, not fat person is saying all this about us.
Now, if I were to give you a couple of words just like that, could you be funny about it? Does it come naturally to you just like...
I don't know, try.
Okay. Conference.
People pretending to be interested in really boring things.
Sexy.
I just wrote a column about it. Sexy is nice in the bedroom and deplorable in the boardroom.
Narendra Modi.
I think Modi is a word that is now, he's established it, that he's everywhere in the country. And I even used it on the Scrabble board and nobody objected.
Would anyone else, since she's got such wit, would anyone else like to give her a word? Go for it. Okay, while they're getting the mic there. Okay. Aunties.
Punjabi aunties or just aunties?
Your choice.
But what? I don't think that there's anything wrong with aunties. And in fact, now it's become that if somebody wants to put me down, they call me an auntie. So, yeah.
Mothers.
My mother particularly, or just mothers?
Most mothers are the same, as I just explained to you.
So,
or your mother particularly. Let's go with that. Let's make it personal.
So the last thing when, I told my mom about me doing really well, and I because we always complain, right? Whatever our mother's done, it's always wrong. So even if you're doing well in life, I was like, Mom, I'm doing so well, and, you shouldn't have pushed me in the movies, and I could have had this earlier. So she said two very important things to me. The first thing she said, "Jhaad pe mat chad." Okay, so I said, no, I'm actually trying to climb the bestseller charts at crossword, not a tree, but she didn't say that. And then she said another important thing. She said, if this had happened to you at 20 and would be over by 40, what would you do then? So it worked out well.
Husbands.
It's nice to have a husband. It's nice to have a handbag. You can live without both. But, but it just makes life a little more comfortable.
News.
I miss Arnab.
I didn't hear you.
That is news. Okay, you're putting a lot of pressure on me.
Okay. No. What would be your message for women in India today?
My message for women in India today would be that it is not as easy as it seems. It's not as easy as people make it out to be. And it is difficult for them to hold their own, by and large. And I think that in order to attain equality today in India, you have to work twice as hard as men. And that is a reality.
A big round of applause. I think we have to stay on stage. Someone wants to give you something. Well.